Alright, so welcome back. So today we're going to be continuing our journey with watercolors. Recently, I visited a park behind the museum Newfields in Indianapolis, Indiana. I was really inspired by the nature and the scenes that I saw. I saw a lot of beautiful fall colors, greens, blues, reds, oranges, yellows, and the bright sky creating shadows on the grounds where the trees were standing. I was really inspired by the scene, and I wanted to recreate that in a watercolor painting. I wanted us to work together to create our own scenes in nature. Sometimes it's good to just pull away from all the things that are going on in your world with technology and to really just catch a fresh breath of air, experience nature. So this is what we're going to do with this painting. Now, in order to create this painting, you're just going to need a few things. You're going to need your watercolors again. You're going to need yourself a black marker and a pencil. Of course, you're going to want some paper towels, and you're going to need a cup of water that's clean and a brush. As long as you have those things, you can recreate your own landscape inspired by nature, the best artist ever. Okay, so for this project, we want to focus in and key in on a few things, all right? We want to think about light and shadow and horizon line, and I'll explain all of those things as we're going. First thing we're going to do is we're going to take our pencil and we're going to draw ourselves a horizon line sort of in the center of the paper. It doesn't have to be totally in the center. It could be a bit above or below center. That's going to be our horizon line, and this is our land, and this is going to be our sky. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw in the background just an abstract version of bushes and trees, okay? So in order to do that, we're going to just take a random line up and down, just like so, imagining different heights of trees. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to draw a sun. I'm going to do that simply with a circle. I don't want my sun to be right in the center of the paper. I want it to be a little bit off center. I feel like things feel a little bit more natural when they're just a bit off center. So not a perfect circle by any means. When I just drew my sun, I also want to just make some lines in my background to just break up the openness of the sky and to make our drawing a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to use some wavy organic lines, and I'm going to draw a few of those in my background also. Just a few. Looks like I got 3, and that's plenty. So now I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna start to draw my trees. So when I draw my trees, I'm gonna start with just like so, and I'm gonna put 3 to 4 of these in different spaces on my paper. Now when I'm doing this, I don't want all the trees to be level on the same plane, so I've got them going up and down, up and down. I find a lot of times that using odd numbers in nature also makes things feel a little bit more natural, so I think I'm gonna work with 5 trees here. As I draw those U's or those C's, I'm just gonna randomly draw some organic lines coming up the paper to represent the tree. Doesn't have to be a straight line, and as a matter of fact, I think it feels a little bit better if the line is wobbly and wiggly. Because if you look close at a tree, it doesn't go straight into the air. There are definitely indentations and parts that, go in and go out. So here we go. Just drawing these lines to represent my tree. I'll have a branch coming towards the end of these trees, just like so. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to draw is I'm going to create the lines that indicate the shadows. So if the sun is here, the sun is behind the trees, the sun is hitting the other side of the tree that we don't see, and that's why the shadow is going to cast on the side that we do see. So I'm going to draw some lines to represent the shadows of the trees. I want those to be kind of wobbly too, just like so. This one's sort of in the center of the paper, so it's going to go almost straight down, like that. So just imagine if you were standing there, what this would look like. One more step. I'm going to break up these spaces in between the trees where the grass and the land is. I'm simply going to do that by just creating some inorganic geometric lines very lightly, crossing one another. We've done things like this in other projects, just some random lines to break up the monotony. All right, so now we've got all of our main lines drawn out. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to trace our main lines, all right? I'm going to start by tracing the things that are in the front of the picture. That's going to be my tree. take my black marker and just trace away. Doesn't have to be completely perfect, but do your best. There we go. Continue my tracing. I'm taking my time. Okay. Just about finished with my trees. I'm going to just continue to work on the things that are in the background. So I'll draw those wave lines that I had in the background, making sure that I don't draw the lines through the tree. Avoiding going through the tree. Alright, I won't draw the sun either. I'm going to move down to this line that indicates trees and bushes in the background, and I'm actually going to break that up a little bit more. I'm just going to draw some random shapes back here to just break those lines up just a little bit more. Okay, just some random shapes breaking up those trees that are in the background, just like so. That'll work. Here is that original horizon line that I created. And now I'm going to trace my shadows. Looking good. And as long as you're kind of still following that wobbly motion, your shadows are going to look pretty natural. Those inorganic geometric shapes that I broke up with back here, I'm going to trace those, making sure I don't go through my tree. I can go through my shadows though. Shadows are not necessarily just black. A lot of times you can see through shadow. It just makes the shadow is being cast on just a little bit darker. So those lines can go right through the shadow. So it looks like I'm just about ready to paint. One thing that I need to think about is cleaning the areas up where the pencil's still on the paper. So I'm going to take an eraser. You can use your pencil to do that. Looks like mine's a little bit too used. I'm going to just grab myself an eraser and I'm going to go ahead and start to clean out this image. Now that I have went ahead and created my underdrawing, erased those lines that I don't need, it's just about time to paint. But I did forget one more thing. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trace this sun. Now, the difference between this sun and everything else I traced, I'm going to just indicate that the sun is there. I'm not going to draw a perfect circle. I'm just going to draw random lines, and they're going to even go through those trees. Okay? Because the reason I'm doing that is oftentimes if the sun is really bright outside and it's a really beautiful blue day with little to no clouds, if that sun is shining on an object, you might almost see where the sun feels like it's going through the object. So that's why I did it that way. We'll paint it very soon. Okay, so now I'm ready to paint. Like we painted with the last watercolor, we're going to create washes on our paper of base tones and then add layers of color on top of those base tones. Let's say I'm going to work on my grass first. I'm going to take my green, which is going to be the base tone for my grass, and I'm just going to start to lay it out through all the shapes. Okay? Just laying the grass out throughout the whole shape. Okay? It's not a slow process. You can do it pretty quickly and just get that first layer completed. Okay? I'm going to take some more green, do the same. Come through here, complete this grass. I'm going to continue this just like so. Once you got the base tones laid down, now you can start to build on top of them. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to another color, pretending that I've got all of the green down. Just for time purposes, I'm going to move into my brown and I'm going to work on those trees. So same thing applies. I'm going to take that brown and I'm just going to lay down the flat base color of the tree. Now, does your tree need to be brown? No. Does your grass need to be green? No. You can follow along with me Or you can get creative and imaginative. You can imagine different colored trees. You can imagine fall tones, spring tones, summer tones. Think about what those seasons look like and what the trees look like during those times. Or again, you know, this could just be your world and maybe you have a purple tree by an orange tree. You know, I want you to get creative. You don't always have to think inside of the box. You can think outside of the box, okay? I know that a lot of my projects are really just keyed around learning simple steps and processes, but I also want you to find some creativity in what you're doing. So you're just gonna keep on building those layers in one by one, all right? Looking good. Add in a little bit more brown here. The best thing about putting down these light washes is that I do not have to keep it light. I can always build more color on top of color as things dry. All right, I'm gonna move on, put a little bit of blue in the sky and then show you what I mean by creating new washes, okay? So let's imagine I fill up my sky with the blue, just like so. It's a quick process, it's not tedious. I'm getting all of that space and I'm just laying it on top of my paper. So now I'm going to pretend that I went ahead and completed the whole image and we have layer number 1 finished. After you complete layer number 1, it's time to start putting on layer number 2. So I started with that grass, painting it simply green, but I'm thinking, you know what, it's the fall right now and a lot of times I see dry yellow, brown, and orange grass. So I'm gonna take some yellow and I am going to just, in random spots, add some yellow to some of those shapes. And now I have layer number 2, wash number 2. And I'm going to continue to develop my painting in this way. There's layer number 2. I can do the same thing with my trees. I can take another layer of brown and I can go right on top. And when I'm adding in that second layer of brown, I'm thinking about where the sun is shining. And I'm thinking that if the sun is almost in the center of the paper, then probably on the side that is closest to the center is where I'm going to have more highlights from the sun, okay? So I'm leaving that layer open the closer it is towards the sun to create highlight on the tree. So the sun's probably hitting over here, so I'm leaving that alone, making it darker on this side. So over on this side of the paper, it'd be opposite. I'm gonna move down here, add some shadow in. So you can see I'm just building layers of color one at a time. I'm gonna use some purple for my shadows. That'll work. You know, you'll be surprised if you really just stop and stare at nature. You'll be surprised all of the colors that you see. It's not simple green and brown. I look inside of trees and I can see yellows. And this is on a summer day, not even in the fall. I can see yellows, blues, greens, light greens, dark greens, brown. So I'm gonna add a second wash into the top. I'm gonna add some purples into my sky. So I just want you to understand that you're creating washes and layers of color, highlights and shadows. If you want a shadowed area, make it darker. If you want a highlighted area, leave it open. Don't put as much wash in. So when it's all said and done and you're finished, your image should look something like this. As you can see, I built layer on top of layer to create my painting, okay? So in the background where the trees are, I added greens, yellows, and oranges. The tree, I added several washes of brown, and then on top of the wash of brown, I added some reds. I left these areas more open over here, less washes, so the sun would be hitting in those areas. Same thing up here, I made these a little bit lighter, less washes, because maybe the sun is casting closer here. I put purples and blues into my shadows. I added some yellows here. I darkened some areas of my sky. I did some tracing. And then at the end, I took my marker and I traced everything over again one more time to really make those colors pop. I look forward to seeing what you're gonna do with this project. You're doing a wonderful job. So good luck and have fun with this.